Well, greetings everyone, and welcome once again to our Saturday fantasy show. We have the Hawk is back. It's been a little while, so we're going to get the Hawk in here. Hopefully, Reggie will be by with a quick uh, cameo this morning. But Hawk, how have you been?
Good. Just got back from some world travels. It's nice to be back in the States, and nice to be back here talking football again.
Oh man, okay. Well, we were talking about polar vortexes and things like that around here, and you actually went to Antarctica, right?
Yeah, right in the middle of an actual polar vortex. So it's awesome. Did some kayaking. We actually slept on the continent in like a bivouac. Explored penguin colonies. It was did a polar plunge, which was super cold. Came up out of the water and had a shot of vodka, which warmed me back up. But it was a really good time.
Oh man, okay, all right, yeah. Sounds like a really good trip there.
Seventh and final continent. So check that off the bucket list. We've now been all seven.
Oh, okay, all right. Hey man, that's off your bucket list. How have things been with the fantasy smash up sports? I've seen a lot of contests, and I got the experience of beating some of the really good guys. I think I got four, uh, not quite as many as I wanted, but it was a good experience. And as a matter of fact, you still have two contests going on. You want to tell us a little bit about it?
Yeah, so it's been a great season. User numbers just continue to go up, which is awesome. Sitting just about at 10,000 now, which is really great for basically our first season. And then the single player was fun, but right now we've got a couple of things going on. We still have our weekly tournament, so obviously all this is completely free to play. No entry fees, no pay to win mechanics, no buying card packs, no subscriptions. Just come set a line. You don't even have to give us a credit card. But if you win, there's some cash prize for the top 50. We've also got our beginner battles. So if you're kind of new to the concept and the fact that you've got these kind of power-up cards you can play on your players, that if you think you know what they're going to do, you can use them to get some extra fantasy points. You can do the beginner battle. Beginner battle is a little simpler. Only a few cards, kind of lets you get the hang of things. For the top 5 teams, still in a few bucks, not the 1,500 of the main tournament, but about $10 each to still get a little something. And then we've partnered with the Fantasy Football Advice Network, who is running a playoff challenge, and it's 3 weeks long during the leading up to the Super Bowl. So 1 week has happened. There's still this weekend and next weekend. If you play and you finish in the top 5, not only do you get some cash for that, but you qualify for the Super Bowl Showdown. And the Super Bowl Showdown has cash to the top few winners. I think the first place gets something like $1,600 and a Super Bowl ring. Well, not the Super Bowl ring, but a ring for winning that Fantasy Football Advice Network has designed. So I don't know off the top of my head if they use Trophy Smack or exactly who they use for it. But anyway, cool opportunity to play, cool opportunity to compete, and still play some fantasy even now that the normal seasons are over.
All right,
Hey, Reggie.
What's going on, fellas?
Hey, I see the second half of the crew is here. Reggie, how are you doing this morning?
Man, it's good, man. I don't have much time here. Thought I'd pop in. You said you guys are on. I was like, man, let me give this a few minutes. I got to about roughly 12:30-ish or so. I'm where I'm at here. So decided to pop in with you guys, see what's going on, see how everything has been.
Yeah. Hawk, what's coming up for Smash Up Sports next season?
It's a good question. I think that's what we're going to figure out a little bit as we get to the off season. So we want to keep expanding the games. We want to keep doing some things that are new and innovative, but we'll be doing some customer research right at the end of the season and working on developing for next year, and depending on fundraising as well. Certainly don't want to commit to anything. Our developers would kill me, but I think that at some point have an app in the App Store as well, which has been for some people has made it a little bit trickier. I know some people are fine playing on the web browser or on their laptop, but some people just love those. So I think especially younger people really love playing on an app instead. So I know that's something we would like to do. We'll have to see how the offseason goes.
Okay.
Nice.
Reg, we were just talking about the Hawk there. He's got the 7 continents checked off his bucket list.
Really?
Yeah. So, you got any questions for the Hawk while we have him here? While you're here, really? Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So, Chris, are you guys going to do any basketball fantasy ever? I would imagine it'll be a massive undertaking with all the players and all that stuff that you would have to do, and the upkeep, which is pretty much daily when it comes to basketball fantasy. Um, are you guys looking to wade into that at some point, or I know you're still trying to get the football thing down?
Yeah, we would like to. I mean, I'll say this. I think our original plan was to maybe roll directly from football to basketball to baseball. The problem is just, time and resources. So football is just by far the biggest. It's not even close. So I'm actually potentially more of a basketball fan than even a football fan. Like, I know football pretty
Really?
well. Basketball, I know inside out. I know the NBA draft. I mean, I know it's ridiculous, right? So I would love for us to do basketball. We actually have a plan for how we would do it too. I think right now it's just about using the resources we have to nail football, not spread ourselves too thin. And if we try to develop what we had for football for basketball, probably won't even be ready until May. So it's already towards the end of the season. So I think we need to nail football still. And I think, but in the future as we grow, we'd love to do basketball. We'd love to do baseball. Potentially than even other sports and esports, but it still just starts. I mean, it's crazy. You look at the numbers, like NFL, it's almost like bigger than I think like basketball, baseball, soccer. You could almost add all the other fantasy sports together. And
Yeah,
NFL.
absolutely.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah.
And hopefully that's something that you guys could get into. It'd be nice to see that. What are the plans for after the season then, Hawk? Like after the season ends, is it kind of like you guys just kind of hibernate until the season starts again kind of situation? The I feel like a lot of these apps do. Some apps, guys, as a matter of fact, have fantasy drafts that start like as soon as the season's over.
No, I think for us it's the next step we have to figure out. So I think this is where we got to go back. We got to go talk to customers. We have some ideas what we want to do. We're very customer driven, so we're going to go do some research, talk to customers, figure out like what interests them, and obviously we're talking to investors as well. So I think we're going to see how much money we have, because it also can we hire more programmers, right? More programmers means we can promote more. What is it? Where's kind of the demand, and where's the next spot for us to lean into? And then the off season it's funny. I guess technically it's hibernation from a front facing perspective. We'll do a little bit of social media. We'll maybe see if there's some contests or quizzes or things we can do to engage people, but it's a little bit quieter. But behind the scenes, we are just as busy as the regular season because it's a lot less time than you would think, right? So Super Bowl ends in February, and then by like June, July, you're already starting to do. People are starting to sign up. That are beyond just the really like crazy fantasy people like us. Even more mainstream fantasy players are starting to like look at information and do mock drafts as early as June. So you really only have a few month window for development. And so it's a sprint from the second the season ends to the next season.
Wow. Interesting.
No rest for the weary.
Well, I'm going to do something while we got the Reg in here. And then, Chris, we might have a couple minutes after Reggie goes off. But I wanted to go through kind of the fantasy season here according to ESPN. And I got a list of the it goes from most valuable player all the way to rookie of the year. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask you guys to give your let's see, your vote on this, and then you can kind of tell me. I'll tell you what the winners are as far as ESPN is concerned. So Gotta wait for it to get here. Okay. So let's start out with our rookie of the year, and these are the three candidates for rookie of the year: Brock Bowers, Jaden Daniels, Malik Neighbors, and Brian Thomas Jr. Who do you think got rookie of the year, Reggie?
Man, for me, it's going to be Jaden Daniels, but I might be a little partial here because I did have Jaden Daniels. He's one of those guys that I drafted that was being disrespected in the draft, and I drafted him on a few different teams very late in drafts, and he really balled for me. So maybe I'm being a little partial here to like what his direct impact was on my fantasy life this past year. But I like Jaden Daniels, and these things are hard, guys, only because a argument can be made for all these guys. Because you got, I think, with Neighbors and Brock Bowers, you got records you're talking about that were being broken there. So I like Jaden Daniels, but I'm not all the way objective here.
What do you think, Chris?
Yeah, I'm with Reggie, and I'll just say I'm with Reggie, and I'll say I'm all in on Jaden here, and I think look, there's a couple things that make a rookie of the year. One is just the raw stats and performance. Jaden has that. Two is a little bit of the buzz, and Jaden has that. And then three, well, it's even compared to a sport like basketball, it's unfair to put winning and losing on one player, much less a rookie.
For sure.
The simple truth is that Brock Bowers was great. The Raiders were terrible. Neighbors great. The Giants were terrible. Brian Thomas Jr. great. The Jaguars were terrible, right? Meanwhile, the Commanders are in the second round of the playoffs. And even if we just look at regular season, they, turn their they had like an extra 7 wins. And again, that's not all 100% Jaden. Adam Peters has done a great job there on both sides of the ball. Acquiring Marshawn Lattimore was huge. But he put up the numbers. He's got the electricity, and the team turned it around and became a playoff team. I don't know how you could go with anyone besides Shaden.
And our rookie of the year is Jaden Daniels.
Okay. All right. We're 1 for 1. We're 1 for 1 here.
All right. Woo. Breakout player of the year. The nominees are Chase Brown, Sam Darnold, Chuba Hubbard, or Jackson Smith Najigba.
Breakout player, huh? Man, that's a rough one, man.
Go ahead, Chris.
All right, so we got that's a tricky one. I am ultimately going to go for Sam Darnold. My heart wants to go to Chuba, and I realize like after last week again in the playoffs, there's a lot of people who swing against Sam, but Darnold was sort of left for dead, right? He wound up being the backup quarterback for the Niners last year. All indications at the beginning of the year with the Vikings we go with J.J. McCarthy. Najigba was great, and maybe a year or two from now we're laughing because Najigba might be the only one who's still a big name. Running backs are a little bit of a product of just like the line they're behind in the situation. Obviously, quarterbacks, the offensive line and the offensive talent matters, and the Vikings helped Darnold a lot there. But quarterback is the trickiest position in the NFL. So I think if I'm looking at one quarterback who went from, a cast-off to over 3,000 yards, over 20 touchdowns, and leading a team to the playoffs, I'm gonna go that direction. So I'm picking Sam.
Well, go ahead, Reg.
Gotta agree here, man. I gotta agree only because of the position. When you look at even if you were to say everything is the same, one thing that Chris referenced in the last example is winning. We look at where it's a winning organization. Like they won 13, 14 games this year, if I'm not mistaken. When you look at the production that he's giving you for what he's being paid, he's giving you production of a guy that's paid 3 to 4 times what he's being paid. I don't see how it's not him. I think that if he had told anybody that he was going to have over 4,000 yards with a touchdown to interception ratio he had, and his team was going to be in the playoff, he had said that all at the beginning of the year, the team would have took it. We'd be like, oh hell yeah, let's go. So I think those other players are great. It's not a knock on any of those other guys. It's just that I think I like Sam Darnold more, and I think probably just because of the position that he plays, to be honest with you.
I would probably go along with you guys, but according to ESPN, it's Jackson Smith-Njigba.
You know, it's crazy why I don't really like that because with JSN, I've always respected him. I never thought he was a bum. So it's kind of like maybe it's because it's with a player like Jackson Smith-Njigba, it's like a player like Chase Brown. Anybody that's been playing fantasy that in the beginning of the year, you know these players are probably going to be good. So it doesn't surprise me that we get to the end of the year and the players that we thought may be good at the end of the year, at the beginning of the year, are good at the end of the year. I just don't think that was Sam Darnold's reality. I don't think. I mean, it doesn't surprise me that JSN is good at the beginning, at the end of the year. If you told me that at the beginning of the year, I'm not surprised. If you told me that Chase Brown is good at the end of the year, at the beginning of the year, I'm not surprised. If you had told me Sam Darnold had 4,000 yards and threw for what he did at the end of the year, the beginning of the year, I'm definitely shocked. If you told me that Sam Darnold would be a fantasy viable quarterback, I'm shocked. So it is interesting, but shout out to JSN though. Great, excellent year for him.
And I realized, I'm with you. And I realized JSN came on strong, but I just kind of had to look it up on the side as you're talking. His final stats were 1,100 yards and 6 touchdowns.
Not saying the world.
That's totally expected.
It's
That
not
to me
bad.
doesn't really like a breakout.
Correct.
Was that?
Correct.
Yeah.
Okay, I
I mean,
100%
it's
agree.
good, right?
That's a good year for him, but not a breakout year, as Hawk is saying here. And it doesn't seem to me like a breakout. I actually thought it was better than that, to be honest with you, when I was giving my comment.
Yeah,
And to be fair to him, I think he started slow and he took off. So I think,
Yes.
if you probably looked at like the rate of the last 8 games, it's probably even more. But again, like this wasn't like, a Jamar Chase rookie season where he had like 1,500 yards and double-digit touchdowns. So Reggie, again, we keep agreeing. We got to disagree on something eventually, but I'm totally with you.
More questions to come. We'll see if we can find something down the line here.
Okay, comeback player of the year: Joe Burrows, Sam Darnold,
Oh, this has got to be Sam, right?
J.K. Dobbins, or Scary Terry.
I'm running Darnold back again for this one, guys. I'm going to run it back. Let's play it again. I'm running Darnold back for this. I mean, if he can't get the last one, which I definitely feel like his year compared to a 1,000-yard JSN year is definitely more. I mean, he had a better year than JSN did, in my opinion, last year. So I'm going to go with him for this award. So I thought he was robbed on the last one. Let's go ahead and try to get him in on this one.
What do you say,
Yeah,
Chris?
I'm with it. This is a bit of a weird list, right? Like Darnold really was kind of that breakout comeback, like you left him for dead player. J.K. Dobbins also. So I'm also going to go with Darnold. I'll say second place for me is J.K. Dobbins, a close second. A guy who just almost have been left for dead as well, just because he could not make it through a season without getting injured 4 games into the year, and he had a great year. Burrow and Terry were just weird. This is more just like their circumstances were bad. Burrow's a little banged up, but the Bengals had an off season. Not really a surprise that they came back. And Terry went from having an okay quarterback situation to a disaster last year, and now had like a good quarterback. I mean, it really wasn't a comeback situation for him. It's just like, hey, the guy throwing the ball was not throwing the ball 10 feet over his head this year, which so it's a little weird to see him on the list. But I'm going to go with Darnold too here.
And the winner is Joe Burrow.
You know why I don't like Burrow being listed on that list? I don't like Burrow on the list because sometimes, to me, just like the JSA, it's a little disrespectful because Burrow has only been injured. When Burrow's never sucks, guys. When Burrow plays, he's always been good. It's his ability to play, the ability to be on the field is what has been the issue, in my opinion. And the Bengals, even when they sucked, Burrow, in my opinion, was always putting up yards. Burrow, and maybe you guys can correct me if I'm wrong. Maybe I'm remembering the wrong Joe Burrow. But has Joe Burrow ever been trash? Like, to me, in my head, Joe Burrow has always been Joe Burrow to me. Like, this year is what Joe Burrow could have always done if he had just been healthy.
Again, I'm looking up the stats here on the side just because I'm like, maybe my memory is bad, right? No, so last season, his off season, he just apparently came back from. He only played 10 games, so not totally injured, just a little banged up, but 10 games instead of 17. In those 10 games, 2,300 yards, 15 touchdowns, 6 interceptions, and instead of 100 quarterback rate of the year before or 108, obviously had a phenomenal year this year. He had a 91 quarterback rating. So, but that would still be like one of the top ratings in the league. So this really wasn't a comeback. It's just he played a full season, and I think last year also Chase and he were banged up. I don't know. I don't get this one at all.
Maybe it's a definition, guys, of comeback the way that we're seeing it. Because the way that I'm saying comeback is you played a full season and you suck. To me, a Geno Smith embodies this award to me. Like a Geno Smith, a guy that's just not great, goes to a different team, and is great. Kind of what Sam Darnold has done. Sam Darnold was not playing last year, and he threw for over 4,000 this year. So it's kind of like, to me, that's a comeback player. A comeback player is not a player that is good, gets injured, comes back and resumes being good. Like, you were never written off, in my opinion. You were just injured, but maybe that they look at it as you were gone, left for dead. I never thought that Joe Burrow was.
The one other one I guess. The one other one I could see, and I just pulled up his numbers. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, James.
No, I was just saying, if you didn't give Sam Darnold the last one, I would give Sam Darnold this one. Like I said, this is an ESPN award, but I would have probably went with Sam Darnold since we didn't give him the last one. But like you said, Joe, when he's healthy, he puts up the numbers that he puts up. Go ahead, Chris.
I was only going to say, if you wanted to define comeback differently, the other guy I mentioned was J.K. Dobbins, and I pulled up his numbers. Last 2 years combined, he had about 540 yards and 3 touchdowns. This year, over 1,000 all-purpose yards and 9 touchdowns. So, look, if you don't want to go with Sam, I could see giving it to J.K. The Burrow thing to me is wild. Like, a guy who was on the same pace but 7 fewer games. I can't get over that. That makes no sense to me.
The guy's played in a Super Bowl, guys. Like, he doesn't suck. Like, I don't understand. Like, is there somebody out there? Is there a word out there that Joe Burrow isn't good? He's Joe Burrow. Joe Burrow is a solid player since LSU, and to me, guys, only injuries has ever stopped him. He's always been a solid player.
Not to keep piling on, but just one last pile on to ESPN here. I'm sorry, I got to do it, which is, okay, again, going back to what we said with like Jaden Daniels, going back to the case you're making with Sam Darnold earlier. Look, if the Bengals had won like 2 games last season and, came back this year, maybe there's a bit of an aura. You could say, well, Joe Burrow like resurrected the team, but they didn't make the playoffs. They were terrible this year, which is not Joe Burrow's fault. The offense was great. It was on the D, but I don't know. It's so weird to give it to him over guys who were in the Anyway, I'll let it go, but it's just a very weird award.
Dobbins more also too. Dobbins to me, embodies what the award or what the award actually is. It's not necessarily for me from players that were already great but just injured. Like, if Jamar Chase got injured and he came back and had another 1,200 yards after, like, he came back. He just came back. Not comeback player of the year. He just came back. It's a little bit of a difference.
Okay, guys, fantasy flop of the year. The nominees.
Oh, man. I got a long list here.
Travis Etienne Jr., Tyreek Hill, Christian McCaffrey, or Anthony Richardson.
Goodness, great. What a great list. What a great list.
So if I'm first in this one, I'm going to go for Etienne. And the reason I'm going to go for that is injuries happen in fantasy. I think that they're hard to predict. And I have a hard time calling someone a flop for a fluke injury, right? CMC sucks, but that, the situation was bad. That's an injury. I'm generally not going to punish a player. Hill definitely had a bit of a down year, but it ultimately didn't really kill you. The worst part of the season was when Tua was out. Again, that happens. When Tua came back, he wasn't. Tyreek Hill 2 years ago was still a really good receiver. So to me, it comes down to Etienne or Anthony Richardson. I think were legitimate flops. You drafted them. You couldn't even start them. But Etienne was drafted higher, and Anthony Richardson still gave you a few really good weeks. Etienne, I think, maybe had about one rosterable week. So he was a guy.
I don't think he had any touchdowns at all this past. I don't know. Did Etienne have any touchdowns this year?
I'll pull up the stats. I think he had one good week, somewhere around like week 2 or 3, and then lost the job completely to Tank. I think he actually started the year okay, but just became a mess, right? So here's a guy you draft in the 2nd or 3rd round, and you were cutting by the end of the season. So that's the biggest flop to me.
That's interesting because I was going to go CMC. And Chris is kind of talking me into the ETN situation here. Like with CMC because I can see ESPN going the way of the CMC only because of him being drafted first overall. Like when you're looking at picks like CMC and Tyreek Hill, I feel like what moves them up that list is just how high they're being drafted. These guys are top 5 draft picks in a lot of the drafts that I was seeing this past season. So it really wrecks your team if your top 5 draft picks gave you that kind of production. Um, so I would personally no, I like ETN and Richardson better only because they played and weren't good. Like it's a difference between not playing and not being good, which definitely still sucks, and I can see ESPN taking that into account. But to Chris's point with ETN and Anthony Richardson, these are guys that didn't have that excuse. They were there. They didn't have the excuse of things changing dramatically around them. Anthony Richardson still had the same receivers. He still had the same running back. ETN still had the same quarterback there. It just wasn't good. So that really sucks.
Yeah,
I'm going to go.
Hold up ETN here. ETN played 15 games, 800 all-purpose yards and 2 touchdowns. Like, to the point you're making,
2 touchdowns in 15 games. 2 touchdowns. 15 games. Okay, so let me go with ETN also, but I'm really torn between ETN and Richardson. I have a feeling, though, that McCaffrey, I have a feeling they're saying McCaffrey. All right, so let me go with, you know what? Just for S and giggles, let's go with Richardson just because he already went with ETN. I'll go Richardson. Between those two, they were both trash this past year.
The winner is ETN.
Yeah, I can see that. I have a coworker complaining about ETN all season to me. All season to me, complaining about this guy.
Ming always made this point, not just about ETN. I think it was actually Richardson he had on some teams. But he kind of make the point. He's like, look, a guy like CMC gets hurt, and you put him in your IR. You can cut him. You can try to find another player. Or if you were smart enough to lucky enough to get his handcuff. Yeah, it sucks to have Mason starting instead of CMC. Mason's not quite as good, but you still get like 80-90% of the production.
Yes, production for sure.
Like
Absolutely.
You're just screwed, right? You can't trade him. No one will trade for him. You don't want to cut him. He's your 3rd round pick, and he has just 800 yards.
Goodness gracious. You feel compelled to put him out there. Every week you're telling yourself this is the week. And with those kind of guys, right? That's the thing that sucks about high draft pick guys. And you know it's crazy, guys. To this point also, my season got better when Brandon Ayuk got injured. So when Brandon Ayuk got injured, and I was forced to take him out of my lineup completely, I won like my next 5 games after that. I lost every game starting Brandon Ayuk. I can't start him anymore, so I'm forced to put in a random person who on paper is not as good as Ayuk, but is putting up better fantasy production than Ayuk, and I won a lot of games after that. So you can be held hostage about these early draft guys.
On the list. Let me give you another name that wasn't on the list here, which they're talking about Anthony Richardson. But let me throw out Pat Mahomes too. Obviously, the Chiefs were great. Real NFL football. He did a great job. A lot of people, myself included, thought he was going to have a better season. And your Ayuk point reminded me of this, which is that I actually took Mahomes pretty high, or for a relatively decent amount of money in auction leagues, and I wound up benching him in every league for Burrow and Jaden Daniels. Unfortunately, I got a second good quarterback, but my teams got better as soon as I just said this guy's on my bench, and eventually I just cut him because he was 12 to 15 points almost every week.
Yeah. I was kind of disappointed, but like you guys, I did keep him on the bench most of the year. Okay, guys, waiver wire wonder. Our nominees: Bucky Irving, Jerry Jeudy, Bo Nix, Jonnu Smith, Reggie.
I feel like it's got to be Jerry Jeudy here because how he came on at the end of the year. But I do like. I mean, there's nobody on this list I don't like. I took a lot of Jonnu Smith in my best ball. best ball drafts. So I had a lot of him there. I didn't have as much of him in my home drafts. I didn't have any. You said Bucky Irving, right? It was Bucky Irving, Johnny Smith, Jerry Judy, and Bo Nix. Bo Nix, I streamed 1 week, handled business for me. I was able to get a W, throwing him in the lineup. Um, I almost say Jerry Judy. Let me say Jerry Judy.
This is such an odd list. So they actually left off the guy who I would probably legitimately pick. I would probably legitimately pick Chuba Hubbard here. Why is he not on the list? This guy was a leader, right?
Guys that could have been on this list. I'm with you there. There's a few guys that could have been on this list that I was thinking about as well.
So I guess for me, I'm partially, if you're a waiver wire wonder, who got you the playoffs and who put you over the top? Judy, obviously a good pick. The problem with Judy is he did nothing beginning of the year, and he fell off once Jameis Winston went out of the lineup. So kind of like left you at the worst time possible.
Package deal, for sure. Absolutely.
Bucky had a good season. I was just kind of looking at his game log, though, and I don't know that he was like winning you the league. Yikes. I might have to actually just go Jonnu Smith here, only because tight end is such a wasteland. The Jonnu, if you got him plugged in, if you were missing a tie and you plugged in Jonnu, he was giving you double digits basically every single week, and he might have been a guy that helped you win the championship. But I think it's awful that like guys like Chuba and Dowdle are not on this list. I think those are the actual probably league winners.
For sure. Chuba was on our waiver in my home league, so absolutely would have been my pick.
Well, according to these four guys, it is Bucky Irving.
Not a surprise.
I can see that for consistency because Bucky. Because I feel like if we talk about Jonnu, because I think there's an argument to be made for all three of these guys versus some of the other ones, but I didn't feel like there was an argument to be made for everybody on the list. This is a situation where I do feel like there can be arguments made because of the pockets of when these guys came on. Because I don't know if any of them necessarily were good from the start all the way to the end. You have pockets of time when they came on for a few weeks here or there. And Bucky, I feel like once he really got the job, I don't know that he ever gave it back. I feel like, so from a consistency standpoint, I'll have to look and see how many games Bucky really became the guy. But I remember Bucky being the guy for a considerable part of the season there. So it's interesting. And Jerry Judy came on in my home league, so that might have been a factor more into my pick also. Because he was a big factor in my home league.
Bucky did good for me after, I believe it was game 5. He put up very consistent numbers after he got the starting job. Yeah, I mean, like you said, you could have put Chuba Hubbard on this list. And
I would have put Chuba over everybody on this list, actually, to be honest with you.
All right, guys. Fantasy MVP. The nominations: Josh Allen, Saquon Barkley, Jamar Chase, Lamar Jackson.
Man, good ones, right? Good ones. The studs. All the studs are here.
Oh, man. Sorry, can you read those one more time, James? I was just marveling at every name. I got to actually pick one.
Josh Allen, Saquon Barkley, Jamar Chase, Lamar Jackson.
It's a great list. I honestly don't think you go wrong on this list. Ultimately, I'm probably going to go Saquon. He was, I mean, for running backs do tend to, I think quarterbacks are just more options. If you're in a one quarterback league, it's harder to get separation. So it kind of narrows it down to Saquon and Chase. And Saquon was just excellent from beginning to end and had a couple of just absolute dominant weeks in the playoffs. He had multiple weeks where he broke off two long touchdowns in the fourth quarter. So I think he probably carried a lot of people to the titles.
Well, I am one of those people that he carried to a title. My first title came with two guys on this list, so I have to choose between them. My title winning team had a Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase stack, so I won with the Joe Burrow Chase stack. And Saquon Barkley was my running back. So I had Barkley, Chase, and Burrow on my championship team this year. So I'm going to make the choice between Chase and Barkley. completely being non-objective here. I love these guys for the rest of my life now. Um, Let me think. So you went with Barkley, right? Is that what you went with Barkley Hawk? So let me take Chase, just to take the opposite of that. Cause I would have taken Barkley or Chase. Either one. I love both these guys. They both have got me my first chip. So I don't really. I mean, it's like choosing between your kids here, man. I don't know. I can't really choose between either one of these guys. So he took Barkley. I'm gonna go ahead and take Chase.
The winner is Saquon.
My guy. My God, Saquon. I feel like Saquon, if you were separating the Barkley was more consistent in my opinion. I feel like Barkley was good from beginning to end. If I look at a player that was good from beginning to end, Barkley definitely more so than Chase. Chase had those super high moments where he'll give you a 50-point week or something like that. So he had high moments, but consistency wise, Barkley was a step for me all the way through. No hate on that whatsoever.
By the way, one interesting point
Yeah.
you brought up, Reggie, is interesting. Like a guy like Burrow would be interesting on this list. I think he basically had similar points to Allen and Lamar Jackson, but
Correct.
he was a guy who gave value.
Points.
He went in like the 7th to 10th round, depending upon your league. Whereas
Yeah.
those other guys,
Yeah.
I mean, Chase was like the 5th pick, right? So anyway, I
You
think
had to
more
reach
value
those other
for
guys.
MVP.
Correct. 100% agree.
Reg, you want to give us some final thoughts before you leave?
Yeah, guys, here's hoping for some great playoff football here. And hoping that everybody had a great fantasy season. It was an amazing season for me here. I was able to go in and get me a chip finally. So now when I come on this show, I actually feel like I know what I'm talking about because I've actually won something besides just being a guy who's just on a show just saying stuff. So I'm looking forward to a very much more knowledgeable 2025 year here, Chris. Hoping that you join us and hoping to see Smash Up Sports around here for this season as well.
Yeah, well, most definitely, we want to keep Chris around and get a little more involved in the Smash Up Sports League. Um, I had a pretty good season. I'm just waiting to see how these last 2 games turn out. Okay, guys. Reggie, you want to give us your lineup for this week? A final lineup?
Man, I don't even have a lineup for this week, guys. Let me tell you something. I won the championship and rode off into the sunset, man. Like as soon as I won that championship, my mind, guys, I'm still in Hawaii. I'm over here with Chris. I'm in Hawaii celebrating in my mind. Like I don't even know the season was still continuing. Like you guys do what you do as we ride off into the sunset and go to our parades and host up our championships over here. That's what we're doing right now.
Okay. All right. I hear you. I was speaking. If you haven't checked out Smash Up Sports yet, Chris, Reggie, they still have 2 more contests.
This week and what? Next week? Is it this week and next week? Is that what we're doing?
And the Super Bowl, but I think it means we have a couple contests going on right now. So we've got the weekly tournament, we've got our beginners battle, and then we've got a contest going on with Fantasy Football Advice Network, where for last week, and now this week and next week, there's qualifiers where the top 5 win some cash and qualify for a Super Bowl showdown. And Super Bowl winner of the Super Bowl week gets, I believe, it's $1,600 and a championship ring that they're making. So some fun stuff to do out there, but definitely worth all free to play, so worth joining and competing. So if you got a little time this morning,
awesome.
Set a lineup and see what you can do.
Well, I might be coming back off of my parade there to submit a couple of lineups here with you guys. Absolutely.
Hey, they pay out cash money.
We all love cash money.
Hey, you can't. You play for free and you win cash. You can't beat that.
Can't beat it.
James won a bit himself. I know James. I see he's got a new hat on. That might be with winning. See,
with his spoils, the spoils of victory. There,
exactly.
Yeah, well, I remain faithful to my Steelers. You and I probably have more tears in our coffee and tea. You with the 49ers and me with the Steelers. So
Hope springs eternal, guys. As always, next season. Hope springs eternal. We're right around the season of the draft, and then we all gonna start getting excited again.
well, yeah, I play my Steelers one and done every year, but hey, you know, they're still my
We got
guy.
this. We got this, right? All right, guys. See you next time.
All right, have a good one, Reg. Talk to you
All right,
later.
All right, Reggie.
Yeah.
See you next time.
see you.
So, Chris,
Thanks all.
can you tell us a little bit more, about these two contests that you have and how people can get in?
Yeah, so if you go to SMASHUPSPORTS.com, the weekly tournaments are the easiest. Let me actually kind of a cool new feature. Let me show you this real quick, Reggie. Let me share screen here. 1 second. Oh, get the right screen.
What happened with Reggie here?
Oh, looks like he's frozen. I think he's having a few connection issues today. I noticed him and I were a couple of times maybe accidentally talking over each other, and I think he might have had a little slow internet. So yeah, so this is on the site. Go to SMASHUPSPORTS.com. Kind of a cool thing here, which is something we didn't have before, which is the NFL dashboard. So, Reg, you might remember that in the past, if you wanted to sign up, you had to go to weekly, then you had to go to your league, then you had to go to campaign. And if you had, Tyreek Hill in your lineup and he got hurt, you had to go search through all your lineups and see where you had Hill. And that obviously was a bit of a pain. So one of the things we've added for players is pretty cool is this NFL dashboard. So if you go to the NFL dashboard, you can see weekly, you can see league. In this case, I've already set some of these lineups, but if you hadn't set anything, you can click and try to find what's available. There's no campaigns right now, so nothing here to set. But you can see I just clicked through really easily, and I can see all the players in my lineup. So if, it happens that Terry McLaurin or Zach Ertz get injured and I need to go replace them, well, there it is. There's my commander right there. I'm going to click into this lineup really quickly, and I can sub McLaurin out. And obviously, none of the games have started, but as they do start, I can kind of see here, I can see my team performance, my team rank, and how I'm performing. So instead of having to click around 37 times, everything's in one place. So if you just go into the site, if you either go to weekly tournament or go to your dashboard, you can join the weekly tournaments. Again, we have both the Fantasy Frenzy with the $1,500 in cash prizes and the Beginner Battle with a little less, with about $50, but it's a smaller, simpler game. And then for League, I think if you go to League, you can just find the Fantasy Football Advice Network Playoff Challenge. But if not, let me see if I can drop the direct link to it here. Oops, in the chat for anyone who is completing correctly. For anyone who is watching.
So which one is this?
This is the Fantasy Football Advice Network Playoff Challenge. That's in the studio. Comments. Here, let me join the chat. Got to connect to my account here again. Continue. Yeah, it's Fantasy Football Advice Network. If you're not familiar with them, they are it's giving me some issues connecting. All right, well, I'll drop in the private chat, and James, maybe you can drop this link in the main chat for anyone who's watching. That's the link to the Fantasy Football Advice Network. They're a cool site. They don't have games themselves. They are think of them like a Fantasy Pros or site like that. They've got a lot of information. They have experts. They have communities of people who play not just Smash It, but all sorts of different games, whether it's DFS or Yahoo. They do a lot of videos. I was actually on their podcast last night, which was cool. So they're doing again this contest, and the way it works, the top 5 every week get some cash prizes, but also qualify for the Super Bowl showdown. Super Bowl. So let me see. I can probably find it pretty quickly on Instagram if I go to our IG. But if you don't follow us on Instagram, you definitely should. Lots of tips, lots of starts for the week, announcements of different contests. So here, for example, this is it, Fantasy Football Advice Network. They've got the Playoff Challenge. As you can see here on the right, each week the top 5 wins cash. First place $200, second place $100, third place $50, fourth and fifth $25. But then qualify for the Super Bowl Showdown. So Super Bowl Showdown will have 15 players who have qualified. Top 3 will get money. First place gets $1,000 in a ring. Second place gets $250, and third place gets $100. So definitely a chance to win a lot of cash and prizes. Well, it's just having fun, right? It's kind of the part of the season your normal fantasy is done with. Hopefully you won a ring like you did, James, or like Reggie, or I did. But now you're just watching games. So add a little bit more fun to the games and give yourself a chance to win some cash.
And that was under the which network was that? Because I don't think I got that one. That was under. You said that was under the
Fantasy Football Advice Network. It's under leagues. I dropped the direct link in our private chat. I couldn't get my YouTube to connect for comments, but if you want to drop in the comments for the listeners, they can just go directly to the comments here. Click on the link, and it'll take you directly to the league.
Okay, that's the Smash Up Fantasy Sports that you just sent the link to, right?
Yeah, so it's a Smash Up Sports League, but it's a direct invite to the Fantasy Football Advice Network League. If you just go to league, you won't see it because you got to join the league. So I dropped the link here, so James, all your listeners can go click on the link and join this and have a chance to win some cash and prizes here.
All right, this sounds good, man. All set to watch a little football today. Who's your poison?
Oh man, I kind of feel like my heart's cheering for the Lions.
I'm not going to ask you to pick players. Now we're just talking teams. Who you got?
So for today's games, I got Kansas City winning. I hate that they're going to win, but I feel like they just do. And then the Lions, the Commanders are a feel-good story. I think they'll do better than maybe people are expecting. I know one popular play on Smash Up right now is people stacking Lions players, thinking this could be like a 40-point blowout. I don't think that happens. I think the Commanders are frisky, but I think the Lions. I just think this could be the Lions here. And then I think in the other games tomorrow, it's tricky. I think the hardest one is that Bills-Ravens game, right?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So I think the Eagles beat the Rams. I'm honestly, it's a coin flip. I'm going to go with the Bills. I feel like there's a little bit of momentum, and I think the Ravens are actually favored by a point, despite the fact
Point and a half
now. Wow.
Yeah.
So it's moved. The line is moved because people are betting on the Ravens. So I'm going to go a little bit against that. I'm going to say that the Bills, they're playing at home. They're just as good of a team. Allen's been on fire. The defense has been good. And I think that the Bills take it, but it's a coin flip. How about you? Who are you picking?
I'm a Steelers fan. What kind of question is that? There's no way in the world I can pick the Ratbirds. Yeah. I know it's a good story. Derrick Henry, Lamar Jackson, but I belong to the AFC North. I got to go with the Bills. I got to go with the Bills. I do like what Josh Allen is doing. I think it's going to take. I think Cook is going to have to play a bigger part. I also think that Amari Cooper might be the wild card here, since he hasn't really had a breakout game. There's even are we going to talk about the tight ends? Which team has the bigger advantage at tight end? But I do think it's going to be somewhat of a different game than people are thinking, only because both teams are used to playing in the cold. But if there's snow, I definitely give Buffalo the advantage there's no way you can simulate the cold of Buffalo. I don't care. You might be able to simulate the team, but you can't simulate that cold. But I do like the Bills. Like I said, it's kind of a prejudice moments, but I'm going with the Bills in that one also. And I do like, as you said, Philadelphia. Even though I did pick the Rams against the Vikings, I just think that Philly brings a little bit too much, and they have a much better line. So I'm going with the Eagles there. Uh, the Chiefs, I like the Chiefs. I do think this is another one where I think it's a fairly close game. The two games today, I was kind of surprised at the line. You have Detroit giving up 9.5 points, and you have who else is playing today? The Texans. You had the Chiefs, I think, giving up 8.5 points, which I think those lines might be a little tested today. But other than that, I think the winners are, as I said.
Makes sense. Either way, I think they're going to be good games. So I'm excited to watch the football this afternoon. Going to be a little bit sad. We've only got 3 weeks left of football. So ready for a good one this afternoon. Let me ask you this. Who are you rooting for overall? Like, who do you want to see win the Super Bowl of all the teams left?
Of all, this is kind of tricky for me because of all the teams left, I would really like to see the Chiefs three-peat. But I'm looking at the Eagles, and I have some concerns. But I'm looking for the Eagles and the Chiefs to make the Super Bowl.
Oh, all right. Yeah, I'm hoping. So I won't be surprised if that's what happens. My heart, though, what I want to say, I'd love to see the Lions. Eagles won a couple years ago. Ready for the Lions to make it. I think them and their fan base deserves it. I think they've got a really, really good team as well. So I'm going to pick Lions in the NFC. And then, I don't know, I'd love to see the Bills. I feel like Josh Allen has just never been able to get past Pat Mahomes. I guess you could say the same thing for Lamar Jackson. So, honestly, I like this. Whoever wins the Ravens-Bills game, that's what I want to see come out. Nothing against the Texans. I just don't think it's quite their time. And maybe more than in the NFC, I'm a lover. I want to see the Lions come out. I feel good for them. The AFC, I'm just a hater. I'm a Niners fan. We've lost this team multiple times. So, I actually less care who wins. I just want the Chiefs to lose. Sorry if there's any Chiefs fans listening. Call me better. It's fair. It's totally fair.
Hey, like I said, that was, I introduced mine with the Bills and the Ravens, so can't call the pot black here. Okay, but hey, man, it was so good having you on this week. It's been a while since we had you. I hope we can get you in next week, unless you found an eighth continent to visit.
No, I didn't think Antarctica was cold enough, so I'm actually heading to Chicago. So I think I should be free. We'll talk. I got to see which day I'm flying back. My spouse works for Hawaiian Airlines, so we get free or close to free flights, but you got to go standby. So I don't always know because it kind of comes down to what day, Saturday or Sunday, what has more seats open, but. Hoping to be on next week. So we'll email during the week and hopefully can make it so we can talk some more playoff football and some more of these smash-up contests.
All right, man. Hey, great having you on. Look forward. Hopefully we can have you next week and talk about are you introducing any more games or are we is this the last 2 weeks?
No, so we'll keep having contests all the way to the Super Bowl. I don't think there's going to be like a new type of game. It'll continue to be like the weekly tournaments and this Fantasy Football Vice Network League. And then we'll see. Maybe it's something a little special for the Super Bowl. But I also think, like last year, I know we weren't on the show yet. I don't know if you play. I don't think you played Smash Up last year, but we introduced some new cards for the Super Bowl last year, specific to the teams that were in it. So I think this year we have to see who makes the big game. But I think we'll have some new Smash cards we introduced for the Super Bowl again, kind of commemorative ones with special art that are kind of allusions to the teams in the game. We got to be careful for copyright. We can't have like a we can't have a Jamar Gibbs card, but we can have some cards that maybe allude to the fact that there's two great running backs on the same team. So maybe a twist on Hellacious halfbacks. I mean, we'll see.
All right, man. Well, hey, you have a good weekend, and good luck to your teams, and look forward to having you back as soon as we can.
Hey, thanks, James. You too. Hopefully we'll be talking next weekend.
All right, man. Have a good one.
Have a good one. Enjoy the games. Bye.
All right, guys. Thank you so much for joining. We will talk to you next week, and enjoy the games today. Have a good weekend.